Hello, welcome to my bookshelf, and today I will be doing my spoiler-free review of Room by Emma Donoghue. And if you don't know, this book is told by our 5-year-old protagonist, Jack, and he has grown up in this one room. He's never left it before, and he lives there with his mother. And that's kind of the general setup of the story, and we see the world through his eyes, which is limited not only because he's been stuck in this room his whole life, but because he's 5 years old, so he's just developmentally, his mind isn't capable of fully understanding everything that's around him quite yet, but he's a really interesting protagonist to be following throughout this story. Alright, so let's jump into my different ratings, and I will just say off the bat, I know that I had recently added a category, a theme, as like one of those sections that I would rate and talk about, but I've decided that that's probably the hardest one to really actually rate, and I think it kind of goes under both my writing category, my enjoyability category, so I'm no longer including that. So as you can tell, this is kind of a continual growing process for me and figuring out like how I want to do these reviews. So I've gone back down to 3 different areas, so let's just jump on in. The first one being writing. I gave this 4 stars for writing. I thought it was really good. Like I said, the entire story is told from the point of view of Jack, so we get his insights and his thoughts about what's going on around him, and just like what is his reality and what he knows to be true and things like that. So it's really interesting just in general because very few books are written from the perspective of someone so young, and so it was really unique in that aspect for me, and it was something that I think that in the hands of a bad author could have been really obnoxious, or I don't know, it could have just not worked very well, but I thought that Emma Donoghue did a really great job with this. I thought that we were able to get some really interesting insights about the world, even though our character didn't understand everything that we did. There was still something about what he was telling us and showing us and thinking that really provided some interesting insights that I don't think we would have necessarily have gotten in the same way anyway, if we were to be following another character, you know, like his mother or something like that. It would have been really interesting to see the story from the mother's perspective, but I think that through Jack's eyes and like through our own knowledge of like the world, we do get a pretty good picture of what the mother is going through and what things are like for her, even if we don't actually ever get to see her direct point of view. We do get to kind of see a little bit into her psyche a little bit based on her actions and what she says and things like that. So I thought it was done really well, and you know, I could see how that could be a very challenging thing to attempt to do, but I thought the writing was really good. So even though we had this young narrator, I thought that, you know, Emma Donoghue did a great job of, you know, putting in, you know, these amazing, interesting themes, and also just like propelling the story along in a really interesting way. It all just seemed to come together. But I will say, I didn't give it 5 stars for the writing just because of what I called the pacing. I don't know if that's really the right word. And part of this could be because I went into this book thinking it was just like a straight up thriller. And so I have these like pre-connotations for like what a thriller is, and this book is not a thriller, not in the traditional sense, and so it threw me off in my expectations. And so like, I mean, admittedly there are thrilling parts in this book, but the really thrilling parts seem to happen like halfway through the book, and so to me then it just felt weird because I was expecting it to be a thriller, and so I was really amped up for the first half, and then when when the thrilling thing happened like halfway through the book, and then we still have another half of this book to read, I was just left like, well, what's next? Like, what more could happen? Like, are they gonna have another climax? Like, what's gonna happen next? And it wasn't really about the thrilling experience, you know, it really wasn't supposed to be a thriller. So I think my expectations really ruined my experience of the writing, because it was this big high in the middle, and then it just kind of mellowed out again, plateaued, and I wasn't expecting that. And I think if I would have gone into it with this idea that like it really isn't a thriller, it's more like a book of exploring like the psychological effects of living in a room your entire life and what that would mean for you, and kind of that experience. You know, it really is more of a psychological book instead of like a thriller per se. So I think if you go into the book with that in mind, like, you won't be as disappointed. I heard that there was a movie made from this book, but I haven't seen it yet. But I do want to, because I did really enjoy this book a lot. So I'd be really curious to see if the movie tries to make it more thrilling just throughout the entire movie. I don't know. I'll be really curious to see. But yeah, I did enjoy this book and the writing, but the pacing felt weird to me because of my expectations. So I took up a star for that. I don't know if I would have still felt that way if I had gone into it with a different set of expectations. Okay, so the next category is characters, and there really isn't a whole lot to say because I gave it 5 stars. I enjoyed the characters a lot, and something I already mentioned before, like, even though we're getting, you know, all the insights through Jack, and obviously, like, we know him very well because he's our narrator, we still get a lot of insight into the mother, even though we never see her, like, inside her mind, and so what she's actually thinking. The character development was amazing, even though, like I said, we didn't get an insight into her. So I thought the writing was really good as far as that goes. But yeah, I thought the characters were great, and they were complex and flawed. They were humans, and they felt real. And yeah, I really enjoyed these characters. I thought they were really well written. Alright, and the next category is enjoyability, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. And I really think that I couldn't give it a full 5 stars because of my reading experience was a little bit spoiled because, like I mentioned about my expectations, and it wasn't what I expected. That really did throw me off, but once I got past that, I really enjoyed it. I would be curious to reread it and see, you know, now that I know, like, what this book is, if I could really enjoy it more. Like, I would want to reread it because of my expectations were inaccurate. But I don't know. I think that after that, I'm not sure how many times I would go to this book to necessarily reread it. I mean, I think that it's a really interesting story and it has a lot of interesting things to say, but I'm not sure how great of a book this would be to reread. I wonder if it would feel kind of slow at parts and drag on, and I don't know. I like, the first time around, it was really engaging for sure. Like, I had a hard time putting it down. But I just feel like once you've read it, I'm not sure how much more you can gain upon additional rereading. Again, it's hard for me to gauge that because I haven't reread it. So, I don't know. I gave it, you know, 4 stars because I did really, really enjoy it, but, you know, I had that moment of confusion once I got through the halfway point. So that's probably just kind of something that happened with me. I wouldn't necessarily say that everyone would experience that. It really is hard to say. But for me, it was 4 stars for enjoyability, but it was still a really enjoyable book. And, you know, overall, I gave this 4 stars, this book, and just everything put together. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to, like, even add up my ratings because there's 3 of them, but it's a 4 point something technically if you do the math, but 2 of the categories, you know, if you look at it, got 4 stars, and then 1 got 5 stars. So overall, like, this is a really good book, and I would definitely highly recommend this book. You know, be aware that it is written from a 5-year-old's perspective, so it's just different from other books, but I think that once you can get over that it's fine and it's enjoyable. Alright, and I think that with that, I will end this video now. As always, I'd be curious to hear what you think in the comments below, and I just want to, as always, thank you guys for watching this video, and until next time.